recording.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello. This is Trudging, Not Judging, the Optimistic Nihilist Guide to Life, the podcast where we discuss how to survive this end-stage capitalist hellscape we find ourselves in, why we are fucked, and why that's actually okay. I am Robbo.
And I'm Nicole.
And we're here to solve all of your life's problems. I'm a trans man with opinions and a penchant for troublemaking.
And I'm a recovering evangelical trying to bring joy into the world.
Today we're discussing optimistic nihilism, what it is, what it isn't, what is it like accepting that we're fucked and that's okay, and so on.
And so, in a nutshell, optimistic nihilism embraces the idea that life has no inherent meaning, but instead of despair, it finds freedom. Without predetermined purpose, we're free to create our own meaning and enjoy the ride. So, nihilism, the we're fucked part. This aspect acknowledges the core tenet that there is no
Intrinsic.
intrinsic meaning or purpose to life, the universe, or our existence. While there may be a God per se, there is no grand cosmic plan, no divine mandate, and no objective morality woven into the fabric of reality. Life just is. From a purely objective, big universe standpoint, our lives are ultimately insignificant in the vast expanse of time and space.
Wow. Wow.
Doesn't that sound
We are
so
fucked.
amazing?
We are fucked. Well, some famous nihilists you might have heard of, Friedrich Nietzsche, Fyodor Dostoevsky, Albert Camus, Jean-Paul Sartre, and Max Stirner. And with few exceptions, they all focused on all the negative aspects of nihilism. But we here are more concerned with the fact that there is seemingly no grand plan for life, right? That's the nihilism part of optimistic nihilism. But what's the optimistic part? This is where the shift occurs. Instead of being paralyzed or depressed by this lack of inherent meaning, optimistic nihilism sees it as freeing. If there's no pre-written script for existence, then we are the authors of our own stories. So we have the agency to create our own values. We decide what matters to us: love, kindness, creativity, knowledge, connection, etc. These values are subjective, but no less real or important to us. We can choose to embrace the positivity in the absurdity of life. We can also choose to find joy in the present. Without the burden of a grand cosmic purpose, we can focus on the immediate experiences and pleasures of life. We can grow where we're planted.
And embrace freedom and responsibility. We are free to choose our actions and create our own meaning. But this freedom also comes with the responsibility to define our own ethics and purpose. With great power comes great responsibility. We can appreciate the fleeting nature of existence. The fact that our time is limited can make the experiences we have and the connections we form even more precious. This too shall pass. Reject external authority on meaning. We don't need to wait for a divine decree or a societal consensus to tell us what our life should be about. We get to choose who we're going to become.
Yeah.
And one little fun fact, all of those names that Robbo so perfectly pronounced earlier, Nietzsche is the one who originally is coined with the optimistic nihilist part of it, although he didn't call it optimistic nihilism. We just like that.
Well, it's the midpoint check-in. We have
Yes.
to address why we are optimistic nihilists. So we each have our own reasons for embracing this mindset that we've embraced. And Nicole's about to tell us about why she did.
Yay. So, I'm going to break an essential rule of polite conversation and bring up religion. Hooray! I was primarily raised in an evangelical church in the 90s. For anybody listening who was also raised like that, then you know the kind of restrictive hell that creates. For
Mm,
those of you who are not, just watch a couple episodes of the Duggars or
mhm.
Jesus Camp or any one of
Veggie
those
Tales.
Veggie Tales. I can still sing way too many Veggie Tales by heart.
Yep.
um, it's they have the evangelical church has a very narrow idea of what constitutes morality and meaning in
Mm,
life. And I realized from a young age that I could not measure up. I would most likely be spending my eternity burning in a lake of fire, and
mhm.
not in the cool way like Nirvana or the Meat Puppets, whichever version you like makes it sound. And I'll link to that song if you guys need to know what I'm talking about because it's amazing. um, but
We had the best music in the 90s. We really
we
did.
yes, indeed. But I mean, truly, like this thought was horrifying. I lived in a pretty regular state of despair
Mm,
because I knew that I was sinful by nature and that no matter what I did, I could not stop my sinful thoughts from happening. And
mm,
these were really basic thoughts, I mean, the fact that I was a queer kid, that like I couldn't stop the fact that I found girls more attractive than boys,
mm,
but I knew that that was going to lead me to hell. And so I would pray. And, anyways, we're not going to get all into my religious trauma, but that really shaped, who I was and how difficult it was to live up to this version of meaning in life and morality. And I just
mm,
went over and above trying to please this angry, vengeful God.
mm,
Um, so it really just American evangelical morality, not good for me at
mm.
all. In my 20s, I was introduced to nihilism by a friend of mine. And at first, it sounded scary. Like, what do you mean? If there's no meaning, then everybody's going to go around and rape, murder, and kill, because that's what we do. I don't. Anyways, those are not thoughts that I actually wanted. Those are not
Right.
things that I wanted to do. That's just what I was told would happen without God telling us what to do. Okay.
Mhm, mhm,
Let me just make that very clear. But as I got to learn more about it, then as I've been deconstructing from my faith, then I've discovered meaning in helping others, building community,
mm,
and generally trying to make my little corner of the world a better place for me and all those around me. So, this is technically called active nihilism, that word that I could not remember earlier when I was talking about Nietzsche. So there's active nihilism, which is the optimistic nihilism, and then there's passive nihilism, which is where the world has no meaning, everything
mm,
sucks. I might as well sit here and just let everything just fall apart.
mhm.
I prefer to be an active, aka optimistic nihilist. So, yeah, that's me in my nihilism in a nutshell. So, Robbo, what led to your embrace of optimistic nihilism?
You know, I first of all, I want to say thank you for sharing that with me. That I love hearing more about your past and your traumas and what led you here today. Thank you for sharing that with me. But I couldn't tell you the exact moment that I fully embraced optimistic nihilism. But I can explain how I interpret it. I have a pretty specific and maybe a little controversial take on the nihilism part. Most nihilists believe that there is no God, that there is no divine oversight, no plan, whatever. I actually do believe that God has a plan, but I don't think that that plan particularly concerns us as individuals. It's a cosmic plan stretching over the universe's entire lifespan, and frankly, I'm just a little blip in the vast timeline. I barely even register. Um, It just feels a little bit egotistical to me to assume that God has some epic plan just for me. I'm not the main character, is what I'm saying. I think none of us are the main character. God is the main character, if anybody is. We're all just these little funny little creatures dancing across this big blue ball of water and soil, and God probably cares for me the way I care about a particular ant that I've observed struggling with a leaf cutting. So I don't believe that I'm special, and I know that anything I accomplish will eventually be forgotten and wiped clean by time, because on a long enough time scale, every event's importance literally reduces to zero. The universe's lifespan is infinitely longer than mine, and I don't think that God's plan includes anything special for any one individual. I do expect some negative comments about that belief, but for me, that solidly covers the nihilism part. The optimism part for me is more difficult and more deeply tied to my own struggles. Um, I've I don't know, you know this, Nicole, but I've battled depression my whole life. And at a certain point, I realized that the depression itself was also pointless. There was no reason to stay sad because in the grand scheme, it was just gonna that was gonna be wiped out too. So why stay sad? And aside from my friends and family, my life here won't meaningfully affect anyone one way or another. Everything will be forgotten, including my depression. So the thought became, why not just choose to do something that makes me happy? I decided to stop caring what society thinks I should be doing. If I focus on things that genuinely bring me joy and satisfy my need for growth and change, regardless of what other people think, my situation will improve. And I have found that that is true. When I take right action, when I do something to support my welfare, when I do something to support my joy, my situation changes for the better. So in a way, I gave up on being depressed. It was just as meaningless as anything else, and suddenly I could just put it down and pick something else up. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it took a lot of outside help. I mean, medication, doctors, therapy to get there. But eventually, I chose to make my own decisions, to want to be happy, to embrace growth and change, and to build a new life. Because in the long run, nothing I do will matter to anybody except the funny little creatures around me. So I might as well be kind and help them and create beautiful things. Why not? Why not? There's no reason why not. So, in essence, optimistic nihilism says yes, on a cosmic scale, nothing inherently matters. But because nothing inherently matters, we are free to make things that matter to us. We can find joy, create meaning, and live passionately without the constraints of a predetermined purpose.
Yes, it's about accepting the void and then choosing to dance in it, finding beauty and connection in a universe that doesn't inherently provide it. It's a perspective that can be both sobering and incredibly empowering.
I love that. So, for me, the profound realization that God's plan isn't about my individual storyline and that in the grand scheme, everything I do will eventually fade isn't a depressing thought at all. Instead, it's like the ultimate liberation. It frees me from the pressure of external expectations, from chasing some kind of preordained purpose, and from the weight of my past mistakes. This freedom allows me to truly live life on my own terms, to make choices rooted in my authentic self, and to deliberately choose happiness. Because if nothing ultimately matters on a cosmic scale, then what does matter is the meaning I choose to create right here, right now. This philosophy empowers me to be intentionally kind, to strive to be a good example for my kids, and to genuinely help the other funny little creatures around me. It fuels my desire to create beautiful things, whether it's art or an app or a piece of technical writing, simply because I can and because it brings me joy and growth to my present reality. Like, because why not? Why not?
So, legit ditto on everything that Robbo just said. Um, and I just want to, like, for me, being free from the weight of sin gives me the freedom to live an imperfect life where I'm able to learn and grow and find meaning in the mundane. And I'm allowed to make mistakes in my life
Mm,
and recover from them. My purpose in life is simply to exist. I don't have to do great things. I don't have to leave behind a legacy. I I don't have to achieve any level of greatness. I'm allowed to just exist and do my best to live a life that makes me happy. And part of what makes me happy is helping to bring joy to others around me. And that's enough for me. There's a saying, I don't know where it originates, and I am probably getting it slightly wrong, but it's about when you're stuck in the rain, whether you're happy about it or angry about it, it's still going to rain. So
mm,
I like to find meaning by enjoying the rain.
mm. That's so powerful. I'm really glad you shared that with me. Hopefully, we can hunt down where that came from and link it below in the descriptor for the episode. But I have a question for our listeners, all three of them. Um, what do you think? What 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 absurdity about our modern world are you dealing with? What are you drawing out of this conversation that we're having about our various aspects of nihilism, our optimistic nihilism that we have going on? Let us know in the comments for the episode, and we really look forward to hearing from you. We want to hear some other perspectives. It'll help us grow.
Yes, absolutely. One beautiful thing about this world is the ability to be able to continue learning and growing. You
Mm,
know,
hmm.
it's like once you feel like you know everything, then you're done. Like there's
It's
nothing
true.
else. And I don't ever want to be done.
Me either. High five. Long distance
Yes.
high five. All right.
um,
I think that's it. Is that
yeah,
it?
I think so.
That's our optimistic nihilism in a nutshell. And
Yep.
the astute viewer or listener will notice that I was eating chocolate through the entire episode. That's because I had a really rough day and I just didn't want to deal with the emotions of my day, so I'm eating them instead, which is fine. As long as you don't do it too often, anything in moderation.
Yes, I am also a fan of eating my emotions. Once I realized though that that is why I'm eating so much,
Mm, mm-hmm.
then I try to talk to some people. A lot of
Yes.
times Robbo has definitely received text messages from me like, "Hey, so I just finished this family bag of Lay's potato chips. How are you doing?"
Right. Yeah. It immediately tells me there's something that needs to be addressed here. There's some kind of deep hurt that needs to be dug up and excavated and aired out. And I feel like we have the best conversations after incidents like that. Partly,
Yes.
I think, because we embrace this optimistic nihilism, we come at every interaction with this opportunity to learn instead of to smash down our feelings or whatever is going on. But for those who want to know, it was really good chocolate. It had marzipan filling, and it tasted all right. So yeah.
Did did it get better?
Well, it did because I got to have this conversation with you, and I
Okay.
and I got to teach people about optimistic nihilism. So yeah, it did. It did get
Yay!
better. And it's the chocolate's fault.
Well,
I love
if
you, Nicole.
I love you too. Um, if you would like to follow us, we do have an Instagram, Trudging Not Judging Pod.
Mm.
I am going to try to continue to post relevant memes. And you can also reach out to us on email, trudgingnotjudgingpod@gmail.com.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, you can reach Robert at, you can follow him on Blue Sky at
Blue sky.
Robbo. You
Robo
say it.
Robot.
I
I'm
am
also Robo
incapable of
Robot
speaking.
on YouTube as well, for anybody who's interested in my personal YouTube that I'm just putting out in the world, because that's never gone bad before. Um,
It's a great channel that, personally, me and my children enjoy watching every single
thank
new
you.
episode, so I recommend it even though I know I'm biased. It's okay.
Yeah. Is there anything
And,
else that we are forgetting in our
make sure that you look up the song "Lake of Fire," originally done by the Meat Puppets and then
Mm,
redone on MTV's Unplugged by Nirvana. It is a
wow.
very catchy, very fun song, and also, I was recently told that, I'm a little autistic about my music. So,
Just about the music?
I mean, about quite a few things, but but sometimes when I make references to music, they're not as widely known as I
Mm,
assume they will be.
mhm,
So
mhm.
there we go. It's a great song, guys.
Yeah, I think it's hard to mistake Nirvana, though. I mean, they're powerhouses in the
Oh
industry.
yes,
They're yeah.
100%.
And
I
they're
don't.
also on the oldies channel now. So, yay!
Yay!
Thank God for being an elder millennial.
Indeed. All right, everybody have a beautiful, beautiful day.
Yeah, we love you. Thanks for listening, and I guess we'll see you next time.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.